While I go get us some masks, why don't you start it off, Mom?
I wanted to talk about how life is just so different now than it was when I was growing up. The main difference, of course, is technology. It's way different back then. The first thing is transportation. We've got GPS in our cars, backup cameras. You can go anywhere, do anything, electric, everything. Well, our car was a 1945 Model T Ford with a crank handle on it. And it was my job to do the cranking. Now, this was funny because I was little, but it didn't take a lot of energy. You just had to get the damn thing going around. And I would be cranking, and Grandpa would start it up. And we'd go to town, get supplies, deliver eggs, do whatever we got to do. We only went once every month, 6 weeks, depending on what we needed. So that was the biggie right there, was the car. And of course, if you wanted to call somebody, well, even in my senior year in high school, which was 1963, to call somebody, you picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Sally, get me the Hensons," because you were on a party line. There's no dial, no nothing. You just talked to Sally, and Sally got you through to who you needed to get through. Or you walked over to their house and actually talked to them in person. So that's another thing, it's the telephone. Now we've got a telephone in our hip pocket at all times. It's tracking our asses everywhere we go. They know what we're doing, what we're watching, what we're buying. Hell, the Specs commercial came on after we just bought some Specs.
In French.
In French. Yeah. So there's the car, and there's the telephone. And you didn't have email. You didn't have a computer. You either wrote somebody a letter or you went over there to see them. And of course, we lived in the country. So to go see somebody, you either cranked up the Model T Ford or you jumped on your horse and rode over there. Yep, those were the good old days. Okay. But then, and of course, we didn't have plastic. We didn't have neighborhood grocery stores like Kroger's, Walmart, and all the big guys. Back then, you grew it, you killed it, you did whatever you needed to do. And you went to town and you trade that for things like cloth and things that you couldn't actually make on the farm. But we'd hook up our horse to the wagon and we'd ride into town. I liked that because Granddaddy used to let me sit on the horse like I was riding it, but I wasn't doing nothing. That horse was just pulling that wagon, wondering what the hell this little kid was on my back.
Such a cool kind of adrenaline type of
yeah, it was a rush because that meant he trusted me.
And you got kind of a rush out of it, being on a live animal.
Oh, yeah. Well, I used to ride the mule, the horse. I'd ride the cows if Grandpa wasn't looking. And if we wanted milk, we went out to the barn and grabbed a teat and squeezed it out of that old cow. That's how we got our milk. But the only stores in town were like mom and pop operations. Small stores, no big stores. The movie theater was a silent movie theater because talkies hadn't come out, or at least hadn't come out to that little town I was raised in. So, but we wrote letters, and we had to take the letters to town because there was no door-to-door mail delivery, and you'd go pick up your mail uptown. But let's see, and then what have you got any idea of what you want to say about how technology we have today would have been different back then?
My perspective or through your perspective?
No, do you have any questions?
I definitely do. So you experienced a lot. You experienced from being totally self-sufficient to watching society govern every aspect of your life. So if you could elaborate on how you think that we let so much control go from being self-sufficient and how that has changed over the times, because I think your perspective on it is from the beginning, before it was, to now when it's a total, everyone's governed. No one gets their own water, no one grows their own food. For the most part, everyone's being governed. And I think that's a bad thing, because we lose certain insights to life when we have to, gather our water every day and gather firewood and blah, blah, blah. So maybe you could go into more explanation about how from the farm life to how you were kind of forced into the city life and being governed, how that change has kind of changed society.
The biggest reason society has changed so much is too many people. Well, medicine has made it easy for people to live much longer and aren't.
Keep going.
Because medicine makes it where you don't get sick as much. You can go, of course, this pandemic is kind of scaring us now. But back then, you had to grow your own food because you couldn't go to town and pick up a couple of steaks or, vegetables. Well, you could get vegetables because people would sell them. But I'm just saying you couldn't go to the corner store and get something that's been drenched in bleach and come across like it's real food. And because of the influx of so many people, it was almost like it was necessary for it to grow and have where you could have a grocery store and get all your supplies at one store. We had 5 and dimes where you could get anything at a 5 and dime. And that was in the 60s, or actually the 50s to the 60s. But when you started getting the stores growing and people being more reliant on getting the supplies from someone else because they didn't have the capabilities or the land to grow their own food, to kill their own animals, to do whatever they had to do to survive, to get your water and everything else. I mean, we didn't have running water. Granddaddy put a pump in the kitchen and Grandma and ran a pipe from the well to there. Grandma thought Grandma had gotten a mink coat for dinner because it was all because that pump made it so much easier. We didn't have to drag it by a bucket at a time into the house. So when things started growing and people had to start relying on other things, it was natural for the government, for the city to want a piece of the action. Taxes, license, permits, certificates, all that. And so it was natural that it would grow and be governed. And of course, governing people and their daily lives has a tendency to take over because you get lazy. You don't want to grow your own food because you'd have to find some land. But government has overtaken, and like I said, the main thing is there's too many people. The population has gotten so crazy that it has to take something to run it. Not saying we're running it the right way. The biggest enemy of any empire is over-governing, but that also being able to supply food, water, and shelter. Well, there's just so many people that can live on the farm.
And just here.
So anyway, that's my idea. That's enough for today.
So go ahead and finish it off, Mom, real quick.
Well,
and get some finishing thoughts.
I got the kosher salt.
Oh, good. That's
right
it's better.
You want to come say hi?
I like the Himalayan salt more. I use it all the time. Himalayan salt.
Well, it's just they say to use the kosher salt.
They say.
The recipes.
Everybody.
All right, here we are,
Says
pandemic
that's
2021.
too.
If you are ready, I'm ready. Let's
We're all
go.
ready.
We're all ready. Now I'm in my own house with a mask on. What does that tell you about government? Okay?
Okay.
It's got us all scared to death.
And we're going to continue doing these live shows, going more into my mom's life and her experiences and how it relates to us today. And I hope you all enjoyed today's conversation. And as always, we love you. Au revoir, Shetty.